The scent, that was the first thing that struck me as jarring later. It was a heady mix of expensive champagne, the almost overwhelmingly sweet perfume of hundreds of white garden roses flown in from Ecuador, and the lingering warmth of shared laughter from the rehearsal dinner. It filled the sprawling vineyard suite at the Fairmont-Sonoma Mission Inn, a space I'd specifically chosen for its rustic chic aesthetic, its private terrace overlooking rows of gnarled vines, its air of understated, old-world luxury. My signature touch. Planning exquisite, seamless events wasn't just my job. It was my art form, the business I'd bled for, built from scratch with sheer willpower and endless sleepless nights fueled by lukewarm coffee. And this wedding, our wedding, wasn't just another event. It was meant to be the culmination, my personal masterpiece, a testament to the love story I believed I was living. Mark Hastings, my fiancé, impossibly handsome in his tailored Zegna suit, his posture radiating the easy confidence of someone accustomed to the best, loosened his silk tie. He smiled, that heart-stoppingly charming smile that had first disarmed me across a crowded ballroom 6 months ago when I was managing a high-stakes charity gala for his investment bank. We clinked the delicate flutes of Dom Pérignon, a gift from his parents. The crystal chimed, a fragile, hopeful sound in the opulent room. "To us," he murmured, his blue eyes, usually so direct, crinkling at the corners. "To forever." "To forever," I echoed, my voice softer than I intended, my heart performing that ridiculous, adolescent flutter I thought I'd outgrown. At 34, the owner of Ava Sharma Events, a name gaining serious traction in the competitive Bay Area event scene, I should have been more jaded. But Mark had swept me off my feet. The whirlwind romance, the intelligent conversations, the shared ambition, the grand gestures, like the proposal in Vegas beneath the surprisingly romantic glow of the fake Eiffel Tower. It felt like finding the missing piece. We settled onto the ridiculously plush velvet sofa, the cool night air drifting in from the open terrace doors. Tomorrow. In less than 24 hours, I'd walk down an aisle strewn with thousands of dollars worth of rose petals, wearing a gown that cost more than my first car, and become Mrs. Ava Hastings. Hundreds of people. Our friends, my supportive family flown in from Michigan, his influential East Coast network, my key clients and industry contacts, would witness our union under the shade of the ancient oak trees I'd fallen in love with on my first site visit. It all felt predestined, perfect, polished to a high shine, just like every event I managed. Then the atmosphere shifted. Mark cleared his throat, a small, nervous sound that seemed alien coming from him. He set his champagne flute down with exaggerated care. The relaxed, celebratory posture stiffened. He reached into the inner pocket of his blazer, and my first thought was, oh, a last-minute wedding gift. A locket, earrings. But what emerged wasn't small, or velvet boxed. It was a document. Thick, folded, official-looking. Creamy, expensive paper that signalled legal importance. He placed it on the low-polished walnut coffee table between us, almost reverently. "Ava, honey," he began, his voice attempting casualness but failing, strained around the edges. "There's just one small thing. A bit of paperwork we need to take care of before tomorrow." He attempted a laugh, but it sounded like tearing paper. "My parents, well, you know Eleanor and Richard? They can be a bit traditional. They kind of insisted. Honestly, it's just a formality, really. Standard stuff." My gaze snagged on the document. The words printed in stark, bold, black type at the top seemed to vibrate, sucking the air and warmth from the room. Prenuptial agreement. The champagne in my flute went flat. The cloying sweetness of the roses suddenly smelled funereal. A knot of ice formed in my stomach, tightening, making it hard to breathe. "A prenup?" The word felt foreign, filthy on my tongue. How could that word exist in this beautiful suite on the eve of our beautiful wedding? Yeah, he confirmed quickly, his eyes darting around the room, focusing on a landscape painting, the intricate pattern of the rug anywhere but my face. He fussed unnecessarily with a cufflink. Like I said, mostly Mum and Dad's doing. Old money paranoia, the whole 9 yards. They just want to make sure everyone feels secure, protected, you know? It protects you too, in a way. It protects you too. The lie was so blatant, so insulting, it almost made me laugh. But I couldn't laugh. I couldn't breathe. He hadn't breathed a word of this, not one syllable. Not during the intense, exhilarating months of planning where we debated the merits of peonies versus ranunculus, salmon versus filet mignon, a live band versus a DJ. We'd meticulously planned every detail of the wedding, the symbolic start of our life together. But apparently, the actual terms of that life were subject to a last-minute contractual ambush. We talked about buying a house in Mill Valley, argued playfully over baby names, planned trips to Italy. But the notion that our love required a preemptive financial divorce settlement? Never. It had never crossed my mind because I'd foolishly assumed we were operating on mutual trust. I remembered Eleanor Hastings's tight smile at our engagement party, her comment about my event planning business being such a brave venture, dear, so unpredictable compared to Mark's stable position at the bank. I'd brushed it off as generational difference, perhaps a hint of snobbery. Now, it felt like a foreshadowing I'd willfully ignored. My business wasn't unpredictable. It was the result of 5 years of relentless dedication. I'd started with a $20,000 loan from my parents, paid back within 18 months with interest. Working out of my tiny studio apartment, handling tiny birthday parties and budget weddings. I'd networked obsessively, learned QuickBooks on YouTube, handled demanding clients, navigated vendor crises, survived lean months, and poured every cent of profit back into growth. Now, Ava Sharma Events had a small office downtown, 2 full-time staff, and a reputation for creativity and flawless execution. I wasn't marrying Mark for a lifestyle upgrade. I had carved out my own success, foot by painful foot. The wedding budget was proof. While the Hastings had made a generous contribution, covering perhaps a third of the total cost, I had personally signed checks totaling well over $100,000 from my business account. The $50,000 non-refundable deposit to secure this stunning venue 12 months ago. The $10,000 for my custom Monique Lhuillier gown, shimmering like liquid moonlight in the adjacent bedroom closet. The $30,000 catering minimum, the $10,000 floral budget, the $8,000 for the sought-after 8-piece band, the $7,000 for the star photographer. It was an investment, yes, but one I made joyfully, believing I was co-creating the perfect beginning to a lifetime partnership. And now, this document. This thick sheaf of paper felt like it negated every bit of that effort, every assumption of partnership. It wasn't just a document, it was a judgment, a statement that, despite my success, despite my investment in us, they saw me as a risk. He saw me as a risk. My hand trembled as I finally reached for the agreement, the heavy paper cool beneath my fingertips. I forced myself to scan the dense paragraphs, the legalese blurring slightly through the sudden film of tears. The initial clauses were predictable. Mark's considerable family trust, established generations ago, was designated as his sole and separate property. Untouchable. Fine. His pre-marital assets, including his stock portfolio and condo in the city, also remained his, along with any appreciation. Okay, perhaps standard for his circle. but the clauses that followed felt like calculated blows. All income earned by Mark during the marriage, his substantial salary, his hefty annual bonuses, lucrative stock options from the bank, would also be classified as his separate property. The concept of community property seemed to be entirely written out, replaced by a system designed to keep his wealth firmly cordoned off. Then came the section concerning me, and my stomach churned. My business, Ava Sharma Events LLC, the entity I had poured my lifeblood into, would remain my separate property only under the condition that no marital funds were ever used for its benefit. A ridiculous, impossible standard in a real marriage. What if we shared bank accounts? What if my business hit a temporary rough patch and I needed to borrow from joint savings? It essentially discouraged mutual support. And the final insult, a complete waiver of spousal support, regardless of the marriage duration or any future circumstances, like me potentially scaling back my demanding career if we decided to have children, something we'd talked about hypothetically, dreamily. This wasn't about protecting pre-existing family wealth. This was about ensuring that Mark Hastings, and by extension his family, risked absolutely nothing financially by marrying me. It painted me not as a partner, but as a potential liability, a gold digger whose motives were suspect. Mark, I repeated, my voice low and shaking, infused with a hurt so profound it felt physical. What is this? Who do you think I am? He finally looked directly at me, his expression pleading, desperate. Ava, baby, please don't look at it that way. It doesn't mean anything about us. It's just paper. It's how things are done in my world. It makes my parents happy, lets them sleep at night. You know how much their approval, their blessing means. Does it make you happy, Mark? I pressed, needing to hear it from him, needing to understand how the man who'd proposed with tears in his eyes could endorse this cold calculus. Do you feel you need this level of protection from the woman you asked to be your wife? The woman standing here about to commit her life to you. He ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, messing it up for the first time all evening. It's not about need, he insisted, his voice rising slightly. It's about being smart, sensible, practical. Love is love, Ava, but finances are finances. We shouldn't get them tangled up. Tangled up? My own voice rose, sharp with disbelief and the dawning, sickening realization of his transactional mindset. Mark, I have personally invested over $100,000, money I earned, into creating this sensible, practical wedding we are having tomorrow. Because I was naive enough to believe we were building a life together, based on trust and partnership. And you spring this insulting contract on me the night before. The unfairness of it choked me. Tears, hot and angry, finally escaped, tracing burning paths down my cheeks. Why now? Why not discuss this like adults months ago? Why wait until my family is here? The guests have flown in from across the country. The vendors are paid, the dress is hanging in the closet, and I'm effectively trapped by the sheer momentum of it all. He had the grace to look momentarily ashamed, glancing down at his expensive shoes. But it was fleeting. Defensiveness hardened his features. I didn't want to upset you, he claimed. I kept hoping. I thought maybe they'd drop it. But Dad was adamant last week. He said they couldn't give us their full blessing without it. He took a deep, steadying breath, delivering the final blow. Look, Ava, there's a significant distribution from one of the family trusts I become eligible for upon marriage. It's substantial, enough for the down payment on that gorgeous place in Mill Valley we both loved. Dad's making the signed prenup a non-negotiable condition for releasing those funds early. So, it wasn't just abstract paranoia. It was concrete. His family's money, their desired lifestyle, was contingent on me signing away my dignity, my rights, my assumption of partnership. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice dripping with icy sarcasm fueled by profound hurt. "I have to sign a legal document that screams, 'We don't trust you,' in order for you to access money that will supposedly benefit us? That's the deal?" The sheer, unadulterated transactional coldness of it left me reeling. "Stop twisting my words," he snapped back, his suave facade finally cracking, revealing the entitled impatience beneath. "This is just how things are done. You're being hysterical, overly emotional. Are you seriously going to blow up our entire future, this incredible wedding, the life we could have, over a stupid piece of paper? A piece of paper that dictates the power dynamic of our marriage before it even starts," I retorted, pushing myself off the sofa, needing physical space from him, from the document radiating poison between us. "A piece of paper that proves your family's assets and your future bank balance mean more to you than demonstrating any real trust in the woman you claim to love." "So, what are you saying?" he demanded, his jaw clenched tight, a muscle pulsing angrily in his cheek. "You won't sign it." "Not like this, Mark," I whispered, the fight draining out of me, replaced by a vast, crushing weight of disappointment. "Not demanded, like a ransom note the night before. Not under this kind of pressure. Not when it feels like you just ripped the heart out of everything I thought we were building." He stood up then, stepping closer, using his height, his presence, to intimidate. "Then we have a serious problem, Ava," he said, his voice low and cold. "Because my parents are not bluffing, and neither am I. No signed prenup. No wedding tomorrow." The ultimatum hung in the luxurious air, heavy, ugly, final. He truly believed he had me cornered. He was banking on the sunk costs, the public nature of the event, the fear of humiliation, perhaps even my love for him, to override my sense of self-worth. He thought I would fold. He couldn't have been more wrong. Without another word, feeling strangely detached, as if watching myself from afar, I turned and walked deliberately into the enormous, spa-like marble bathroom. I closed the heavy door behind me and clicked the lock. The silence was immediate, profound. I slid down the cool, smooth marble wall until I was sitting on the floor, wrapping my arms around my knees. And then the sobs came, deep, racking sobs for the death of the dream, for the man I thought I knew, for the beautiful wedding that now felt like a grotesque mockery. The fairy tale hadn't just ended, it had combusted, leaving behind only the acrid smell of betrayal. Eventually, the tears subsided, leaving behind an unnerving calm, the kind that follows a devastating storm. The cold marble felt grounding. Okay, he drew the line. No prenup, no wedding. He made his choice. The money, the family approval, the path of least resistance, over me, over trust. This wasn't love as I understood it. It was a business negotiation where I was being asked to sign under duress. And I wouldn't do it. My phone felt heavy in my trembling hand. I scrolled through my contacts, past the names of vendors and clients, until I found Jessica Chen, MOH. My best friend since college, my first employee, now my invaluable director of operations, my maid of honor, my sister in all but blood. She answered on the second ring, her voice effervescent. "Hey, you decent? Just finished dropping off those ridiculously fancy welcome bags. The guests are obsessed. Getting your beauty sleep. Ready for the biggest day of your life?" "Jess," my voice came out as a strangled whisper. "Jess, I need you. Something terrible has happened." Between ragged breaths and fresh waves of tears mixed with burgeoning anger, I recounted the entire ugly scene, the document, the justification, the ultimatum. Jessica listened, her characteristic ebullience draining away, replaced by stunned silence, then sputtering indignation that quickly escalated into full-blown fury. "He did! What?" she finally exploded, her voice so loud I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "That slick, condescending, trust fund, Patagonia vest-wearing worm! The night before? Oh, Ava, absolutely hell no. You are not signing that insulting piece of trash. And you are not marrying that manipulative, spineless weasel." Her outrage was a shield, deflecting the lingering, insidious whispers of self-doubt, asking if I was the one overreacting, if I was the one ruining everything. Jessica knew me. She knew my business. She knew Mark. She saw the situation with blinding clarity. "My parents," I choked out, thinking of their beaming faces at the rehearsal dinner, their pride in me. "They flew all the way from Michigan, and all those guests. The venue. Screw the venue. Screw the guests' travel plans," Jessica shot back, fiercely protective. "Their temporary inconvenience is nothing compared to you signing your life away to a man and a family who clearly view you as chattel. We will handle your parents gently. We will handle the guests professionally. But right now, we handle Mark. He said, no prenup, no wedding." Those were his exact words, I confirmed, the bitterness sharp on my tongue. "Okay," Jessica said again, her voice shifting into the hyper-efficient, problem-solving mode I knew so well from countless event crises we'd navigated together. "Okay, breathe, Ava. First things first, do not sign. Period. Any lawyer worth their salt would argue duress given the timing. But more importantly, ethically, morally, you cannot start a marriage based on this. Second," she paused, "what do you want to do? Forget the money spent. Forget the potential embarrassment. Listen to your gut. What does Ava Sharma want?" My gut felt like it had been through a paper shredder. But underneath the shredded pieces, a hard core of resolve was forming. "I can't marry him, Jess," I said, the words solidifying the decision. "I can't stand up there tomorrow in front of everyone I know and promise to love, honour, and cherish a man who ambushed me with a contract designed to protect himself from me. I can't fake those vows. I just can't." "Good," Jessica said, her voice filled with grim satisfaction. "That's my girl. So we execute Plan B, cancellation protocol." Cancellation. The word conjured images of frantic phone calls, tearful explanations, the ripple effect of disappointment and chaos. The sheer waste, all that meticulous planning, all that creative energy, all that money, dissolving into nothing but awkward apologies and logistical nightmares. A wave of despair washed over me. But then, another thought, insidious and exhilarating, began to surface. An idea born from years of managing expectations, controlling narratives, and orchestrating complex events down to the smallest detail. The event planner brain, the part of me that thrived on logistics and dramatic reveals, kicked into high gear. Why just cancel? Why absorb the humiliation quietly? He wanted to reduce our marriage to a contract. Fine. Let's make the end of this farce contractual too. Publicly. "No," I said slowly, the audacity of the plan making my heart pound. Not with fear, but with a strange, electrifying energy. "We don't cancel the event, Jess. We pivot. We transform it. He delivered an ultimatum. Now, I deliver the consequence." I laid out the plan, my voice gaining strength, the event producer taking over from the heartbroken fiancé. Detail by meticulous detail. There was a long pause on Jessica's end, then a low, appreciative whistle. "Ava Sharma, You are simultaneously the most terrifying and brilliant woman I know. Seriously, it's perfect. It's savage. It's justice. Okay, Operation Alter Ego is officially a go. Your wish is my command. Tell me exactly what you need me to do. The hours between midnight and dawn became a covert operation conducted from a luxury hotel suite. Fueled by leftover adrenaline, residual grief, and gallons of lukewarm coffee from room service, we worked. I called my parents first, my voice trembling as I explained Mark's ultimatum and my decision. They were shocked, deeply saddened, but their support was unwavering. "Oh, honey," my mum cried softly, "we just want you happy and respected. If he doesn't respect you, he's shown his true colours," my dad finished gruffly. "Good riddance." Their unconditional love was the anchor I desperately needed. Next, a pre-dawn call to Liam, a sharp-tongued family lawyer Jessica swore by. He listened patiently, confirmed the prenup sounded legally dubious due to clear duress and unconscionable timing, and advised me strongly against signing anything. When I hesitantly outlined my counterplan, he chuckled dryly. "Well, Mrs. Sharma," he said, "it's certainly unorthodox, but as a method of communicating extreme dissatisfaction and potentially recouping some costs, it has a certain theatrical flair. Just ensure your friend delivering the message sticks strictly to the facts." While Jessica discreetly coordinated with the venue manager, a woman I'd worked with before who owed me a favour, and who, upon hearing a heavily sanitised version of events, agreed to ensure sound systems were operational and security unobtrusive, and briefed the band leader, instructing them to be ready for an unconventional announcement, followed by a celebration of sorts. I focused on the weapon, the invoice. I opened my laptop, pulled up the master spreadsheet I'd used to track every single wedding-related expense paid from my ASE business account and personal savings. Venue, $50,000 deposit, $25,000 balance due. Catering, $30,000 guaranteed minimum. Flowers by Parisian Petals, $10,550. Photography by Captured Light, $7,200. The High Spirits Band, $8,000. My Monique Lhuillier gown, $10,250. Invitations and stationery, $6,432.58. Welcome bags, contents and delivery, $1,000. Miscellaneous decor rentals, $3,000. The total climbed relentlessly, $117,432.58. I formatted it meticulously onto my company letterhead, complete with payment terms. Payable upon receipt. Title: Wedding Celebration Services Rendered. Final account statement. I printed 3 copies on the hotel's finest paper. I didn't sleep a wink. As the first pale streaks of dawn painted the Sonoma sky in the exact shades of blush and gold specified on my floral mood board, an eerie calm settled over me. The grief was still there, a dull ache beneath my ribs, but it was overlaid with a cold, hard clarity. I knew what I had to do. Around 8 a.m, I picked up my phone and sent Mark a single, deliberately ambiguous text. Getting ready. See you soon. Let him interpret that however his guilty conscience or arrogant assumptions dictated. Jessica arrived shortly after, a veritable general rallying her troops, a troop of 1, plus the hair and makeup artist she'd already discreetly briefed to be supportive but ask no questions. We went through the motions. Hair coiled into an elegant chignon. Makeup applied flawlessly, expertly concealing the puffiness around my eyes. But when the stylist moved towards the closet, reaching for the ethereal Lhuillier gown shimmering in its protective bag, I held up a hand. "Not that one," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "The ivory sheath I wore last night. It was elegant, powerful, appropriate for closing a deal, not starting a marriage. The minutes ticked by with agonizing slowness. Then, the appointed hour. 2 p.m. Downstairs, on the perfectly manicured event lawn, the string quartet began playing Vivaldi's Spring, the cheerful notes drifting up to my suite window. The sound was almost unbearably poignant. Jessica, now changed into the sharp black pantsuit we'd agreed on, gave my hand one last, fierce squeeze. "Showtime," she murmured, tucking the tri-folded invoice inside her minimalist clutch. "You got this. Stay strong." "You too," I whispered back. She slipped out the door. I moved to the window on the suite's private balcony, hidden behind a sheer curtain, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. Below, the scene unfolded exactly as I'd envisioned it in countless planning documents. Hundreds of guests, dressed in their wedding finest, mingled beneath the ancient oaks, sipping champagne bathed in the golden afternoon light. It was breathtakingly beautiful, a perfect illusion. I saw Mark take his place at the altar, beside the slightly nervous-looking officiant. He looked impossibly handsome, radiating confidence, occasionally flashing that killer smile at guests. He scanned the crowd, undoubtedly looking for me, assuming my text meant capitulation. His parents, Eleanor and Richard Hastings, sat front and centre, matriarch and patriarch presiding, radiating smug satisfaction. Across the aisle, my own parents sat quietly, their faces etched with love and concern for me. Then, the string quartet shifted seamlessly into the opening bars of Wagner's bridal chorus. A collective sigh of anticipation went through the crowd. All heads swiveled towards the back of the long, petal-strewn aisle. Mark straightened his already perfect posture, his smile broadening, ready to receive his bride. But the figure who appeared walking down the aisle wasn't wearing white. It was Jessica, alone, walking with purpose and steely resolve in her black pantsuit, holding a wireless microphone. A wave of confusion rippled visibly through the guests. Mark's smile faltered, replaced by a look of utter bewilderment. He took an involuntary step forward as Jessica reached the front, nodded curtly to the officiant, and turned to face the sea of expectant faces. "What's going on?" Mark mouthed, his voice lost in the sudden tense silence. "Good afternoon, everyone," Jessica began, her voice amplified, clear and unwavering, carrying across the lawn. "Thank you all so much for being here today to share in what was supposed to be Ava and Mark's wedding celebration." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to land. "Unfortunately, I have an announcement. There will not be a wedding ceremony today." A collective gasp sucked the air from the venue. Shocked murmurs broke out, spreading like wildfire. Mark stared at Jessica, his face turning pale, shaking his head slightly as if trying to ward off a nightmare. Eleanor Hastings let out a small, strangled cry, clutching her husband's arm. "Last night," Jessica continued, her tone factual, devoid of malice but utterly damning. "Less than 12 hours before they were scheduled to exchange vows, Mark Hastings presented Ava Sharma with a complex and demanding prenuptial agreement." More gasps, louder this time. Heads turned towards Mark, towards his parents. An agreement that he, with the full backing of his family, insisted she sign before she would be allowed to walk down this aisle this afternoon. The collective gaze of hundreds of people felt like a physical force pinning Mark to the spot. This document, Jessica elaborated, presented under conditions of extreme emotional duress and with coercive timing, made it unequivocally clear that Mark and the Hastings family were approaching this union not with the foundational principles of faith and trust, but rather with profound suspicion and an overriding preoccupation with financial protectionism. She let the accusation hang in the air. It contained clauses that significantly disadvantaged Ava, dismissed her own considerable professional achievements, and sought to waive her basic spousal rights in a manner that was not only insulting, but also deeply revealing of their fundamental perception of her worth. She turned her head slightly, her gaze locking onto Mark, who looked like he was about to faint or flee. He opened his mouth, perhaps to object, but Jessica raised her hand slightly, a commanding gesture that silenced him. Ava firmly believes, she declared, her voice ringing with conviction, that a marriage, if it is to have any meaning or hope of success, must be built upon a bedrock of mutual love, unwavering trust, shared vulnerability, and profound respect. A last-minute legal ambush designed to secure financial advantage is a fundamental violation of every single one of those principles. Therefore, Ava cannot, in good conscience and with the self-respect she deserves, proceed with marrying Mark Hastings today. The silence that followed was absolute, thick with shock and dawning understanding. You could have heard a rose petal drop. However, Jessica's voice shifted, regaining a measure of professional warmth. Ava is, as many of you know, not only a woman of integrity, but also an exceptional event planner. She has invested months of her time, her creative energy, and significant personal financial resources, she emphasized the word personal, into orchestrating this beautiful celebration for everyone gathered here. She recognizes that many of you have traveled considerable distances, rearranged schedules, and offered your support, and she appreciates your presence more than words can say. Now, Jessica took a deliberate step towards the altar, towards the frozen figure of Mark Hastings. From her clutch, she retrieved the neatly tri-folded invoice. "Mark," she said, her voice carrying clearly, addressing him directly for the first time. "Since your and your family's paramount concern entering this arrangement appeared to be the specifics of financial obligation and the safeguarding of assets, Ava wanted to provide you with this final piece of documentation to ensure clarity." With a soft rustle of expensive paper, Jessica unfolded the invoice. "This," she announced, holding it up slightly for effect, "is a fully itemized account of all wedding-related expenses, prepaid directly by Ava Sharma Events, or Ms. Ava Sharma personally. The grand total comes to $117,432.58. She enunciated each digit precisely. "Ava considers this her final parting gift to you. The bill for the party meticulously planned under the assumption of partnership, now rendered necessary due to the revelation of a relationship predicated on contract rather than love. Please ensure her business account is reimbursed promptly." With the grace and precision of a surgeon making the final cut, Jessica stepped forward and placed the multi-page invoice directly into Mark's numb, outstretched hand. He stared down at it, his face a mask of disbelief, rage, and crushing public humiliation. Behind him, Eleanor Hastings looked truly apoplectic, her face crimson, while Richard Hastings sat rigid, staring straight ahead, poleaxed. Jessica turned back to the utterly captivated audience. "That being said," she concluded, her voice regaining its cheerful event host tone, "the champagne is flowing, the hors d'oeuvres are waiting, the incredible high spirits band is ready to play, and it truly is a beautiful Sonoma afternoon. Ava invites all of you to stay and enjoy the food, the music, and the open bar as her personal guests. Consider it an impromptu celebration of honesty, resilience, and the wisdom of knowing when to walk away. Please, enjoy the afternoon. Thank you." And with a final, composed nod, Jessica Chen, my hero, turned and walked confidently back down the aisle. The stunned silence broken only by the rising tide of excited, incredulous whispers, leaving Mark Hastings utterly alone at the altar, bathed in the unforgiving California sunlight, holding the six-figure invoice that symbolized the spectacular implosion of his perfectly calculated world. While Jessica was delivering her legendary performance, I was already 30,000 feet over the Pacific, settled into a window seat, watching the California coastline recede. The escape had been seamless. A rental car waiting, a quick change at a gas station restroom miles away, a direct flight to Maui booked under my own name. My un-honeymoon. Destination chosen for its beauty and its distance. The 10 days that followed were a strange mix of numbness and raw emotion. I rented a secluded bungalow overlooking a black sand beach. I kept my phone off for the first 72 hours, needing silence, needing to escape the digital echo chamber I knew was erupting back home. I swam in the turquoise water until my muscles ached, hiked through lush rainforests that smelled of damp earth and wild ginger, ate papaya straight from the fruit stand, and let the gentle rhythm of the island begin to soothe the jagged edges of my grief. I cried, for the lost future, for the betrayal by the man I'd loved, for the public spectacle I'd orchestrated. But beneath the sadness, a different feeling began to emerge. A profound, undeniable sense of relief. Relief that I hadn't signed that document. Relief that I hadn't ignored the blaring red flags. Relief that I hadn't condemned myself to a life partner who viewed me with suspicion. When I finally braced myself and switched my phone back on, the expected deluge hit. Hundreds of notifications. Texts ranging from horrified, "OMG Ava, are you okay?" to supportive, "You absolute legend," to furiously judgmental, mostly anonymous numbers, or distant Hastings relatives. Voicemails from my worried parents, whom Jessica had kept updated. A flood of emails. Jessica had forwarded screenshots of gossip blogs already buzzing with lurid, inaccurate versions of the story, alongside her own concise, factual updates. Mark, she reported, had made a swift, undignified exit from the venue shortly after her speech, his parents trailing furiously behind him. Apparently, the party had continued for a couple of hours, fueled by shock, champagne, and morbid curiosity, before fizzling out awkwardly. The invoice remained conspicuously unpaid. Returning to San Francisco felt like stepping back onto solid ground after being adrift at sea. I walked into my office, ready for whispered conversations and pitying looks from my small team. Instead, I found a bouquet of sunflowers on my desk and quiet nods of respect. My assistant, Maya, simply said, "Glad you're back, Ava." We handled everything. The professional world, it turned out, had less patience for last-minute contractual ambushes than I might have feared. Ironically, the wedding that wasn't became a strange sort of calling card. New clients, particularly successful women navigating their own complex personal and professional lives, sought me out. If you can manage that kind of crisis with such style, one CEO chuckled during a consultation for her company's major product launch, "I have absolute faith you can handle my board of directors." My business didn't just survive, it thrived. The pain didn't vanish overnight. There were still moments of sadness, pangs of what if, but they were increasingly overshadowed by gratitude for my escape and a burgeoning sense of my own resilience. I learned that trust, once shattered so fundamentally, can't be easily glued back together. I learned that financial transparency isn't an optional extra in a serious relationship. It's foundational. Most importantly, I learned that my value wasn't tied to becoming Mrs. Hastings or fitting into their narrow, wealth-obsessed world. My value was inherent, built through my own efforts, defended by my own actions. The catharsis wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming my narrative, enforcing my boundaries, and realizing that choosing myself wasn't selfish, it was survival. Almost a full year has passed. Life is good, busy, challenging, but undeniably mine. The Hastings I heard through the grapevine never paid the invoice, though they did quietly settle with the venue for the outstanding balance to avoid further scandal. Their social reputation apparently took a noticeable dive. Then, last Tuesday, an email notification popped up. Sender, Mark Hastings. Subject, I'm sorry. My heart gave a strange lurch. Against my better judgment, I opened it. It was long, excruciatingly long. A rambling apologia filled with justifications, masquerading as explanations. The immense pressure from his parents, his fear of their disapproval, his own cowardice in not discussing the prenup sooner. He acknowledged the timing was unforgivable, the agreement itself insensitive. He claimed he'd been doing a lot of soul-searching. He didn't explicitly ask for forgiveness, didn't ask for anything really, just ended with a vague sentiment about hoping I was happy and that maybe someday I wouldn't think of him with complete contempt. Reading it stirred up a confusing mix of emotions, a flicker of the old, hurt, weary exasperation and a surprising lack of anger. He still didn't fully get it, still centered his own feelings and justifications. But it was, perhaps, the closest thing to accountability I was ever going to get from him. So, the question lingers, sitting unanswered in my inbox. After the depth of his betrayal, the public nature of the fallout, and the year of silence, what is the appropriate self-respecting response to this belated, imperfect apology? A. Reply with a brief, civil acknowledgement. Something concise like, Mark, I acknowledge receipt of your email and your apology. I hope you found some peace. I wish you well. This offers a modicum of grace. Perhaps grants him the closure he's vaguely seeking, but keeps the door firmly shut on any further interaction or reconciliation. B. Do not reply at all. His actions cause profound hurt and humiliation. The apology, arriving a year later, feels insufficient and self-serving. Silence is a valid response, preserving my peace and sending a clear message that he no longer occupies space in my life or thoughts. Engaging, even minimally, might feel like a concession I'm not willing to make. What path feels truer to the woman I've become? A or B,